Welcome, 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 dear friends. It is so good to have you here tonight. You have found your way to Peter's Stories Lesson, a place where we slow down, breathe easy, and let the quiet magic of a good story carry us gently into rest. Whether you are tucked under a warm blanket, lying in the soft dark of your room, or simply winding down after a long and busy day, I am so glad you are here. If this is your very first time on this channel, I want to say a very special welcome to you. We tell stories here that stay with you, stories that make you feel something, think about something, and maybe even change something. So please take a moment before we begin and hit that subscribe button. Join this family of listeners. You will always find a warm, peaceful story waiting for you here. Now, get comfortable. Take a slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. Let your mind go quiet. Tonight, I want to tell you a story about a boy named Eli. Eli was 11 years old, and by most measures, he was a perfectly ordinary boy. He had messy brown hair that never quite stayed flat, no matter how many times his mother smoothed it down. He had a gap between his two front teeth that whistled slightly when he laughed too hard. He liked football and fried plantains and staying up past his bedtime with a small flashlight reading adventure books under the covers. He lived in a modest house on the edge of a town called Brentfield, a quiet town where the roads were shaded by old mango trees and the evenings smelled like wood smoke and coming rain. It was a simple life, a good life, though Eli did not know that yet. He was still too young to know the difference between a good life and just a life. His mother's name was Grace, and Grace was exactly what she was. She was a small woman with strong hands and tired eyes, but whenever she smiled, the tiredness seemed to disappear, at least for a moment. She woke up every morning before the sun did. She worked long shifts as a seamstress at a small fabric shop in town, sewing hems and mending tiers and stitching beautiful things for people who rarely thought about the hands that made them. In the evenings, she came home and cooked dinner and asked Eli about his day and listened, truly listened, to every single word he said, even on the nights when her feet ached and her back was heavy with exhaustion. She was the kind of mother who remembered the small things. She remembered that Eli hated the crust on his bread, but was too proud to admit it, so she quietly cut it off every morning without saying a word. She remembered that he was afraid of the sound of thunderstorms but wouldn't tell his friends, so on stormy nights she always found a reason to sit close to him on the couch. She remembered the name of every teacher he had ever mentioned, every friend, every small victory and small hurt. She was fully present in his life. But Eli was not fully present in hers. Not because he was a bad boy. He wasn't. He was just a boy who had not yet learned to look up. He was too busy looking forward, looking ahead at the next thing, the next game, the next adventure, the next distraction. He took his mother's presence the way we sometimes take the air we breathe, completely for granted, without a single thought, because it had always just been there. He would roll his eyes when she called him for dinner. He would grunt short answers to her long questions. He would slip away to play with friends without saying goodbye properly, without looking back. He would sit at the table with her and not really see her, just see through her, the way you look through a window you've stopped noticing. His mother's best friend, a kind old woman named Auntie Rosa, who lived 2 houses down, used to shake her head gently when she watched this. Auntie Rosa had grandchildren of her own. She had lived long enough to understand what time does to people. And sometimes, when Grace wasn't looking, Auntie Rosa would hold Eli by the shoulder and look at him with those serious, warm eyes and say, "Eli, that woman loves you more than you know. Don't waste the time you have with her." And Eli would nod politely, because that's what you do when an old woman talks to you. And then he would run off to play, because the words didn't land, They weren't supposed to land yet. He wasn't ready. There was a particular Saturday. A Saturday Eli would remember for the rest of his life, when his mother asked him to stay home with her. She hadn't been feeling well for a few weeks. Nothing she named out loud. Just a tiredness that was deeper than her usual tiredness. A slowness that wasn't there before. She had been to the clinic twice in 1 month, which was unusual, because Grace was the kind of woman who pushed through things and never made a fuss about herself. That Saturday morning, she came into his room and sat on the edge of his bed, and she said, "Eli, would you stay home with me today? We could cook together. I'll teach you how to make your grandmother's pepper soup, the real way." Eli looked up from his football boots, which he had been polishing in preparation for the match his friends had planned that afternoon. "Today?" he said. "Yes," she said, and she smiled that smile of hers. "But Mom, we have a match. I already told the boys I'd be there." She was quiet for a moment. "Of course," she said. "That's fine. Go and play." And he heard the softness in her voice, but he chose not to sit with it. He kissed her quickly on the cheek, a fast, careless kiss, the kind you give without thinking, and he ran out of the door with his boots in his hand, and he played football all afternoon. And he came home laughing and muddy and full of the easy joy of a boy who has not yet learned what matters. His mother had left a plate of food covered with foil on the counter for him. Still warm, he ate it without thinking about the hands that cooked it. The weeks passed, and something shifted, quietly, the way a tide shifts, slowly, then all at once. His mother started sleeping longer. Her voice became softer. She stopped going to the fabric shop, and a neighbor began bringing groceries. The doctor came to the house one evening while Eli was doing homework, and he and his mother spoke in low voices in the other room, the kind of voices that are quiet because the words inside them are too heavy to say at full volume. Eli noticed. Of course he noticed, but he was 11, and he did not have the language for what he was noticing. So he turned back to his homework. He convinced himself it was nothing. He let the adults handle whatever adult thing was happening, the way children do when fear is too large to face. Auntie Rosa started coming over every morning. She would help Grace with breakfast and sit with her in the garden in the late afternoon when the sun was golden and the air was cool. Eli would pass by them sometimes and see them talking, really talking. His mother's hands wrapped around a warm cup, Auntie Rosa leaning forward, both of them looking at something in the middle distance that he couldn't see. One afternoon, Auntie Rosa caught Eli as he was rushing past to meet his friends. She held his wrist, gently but firmly, and looked at him with those eyes. "Eli," she said, "sit with your mother today." "I will later," he said. "Eli," she said again, and this time there was something in the way she said his name that made the back of his neck go cold. "There may not always be a later. Sit with her today." He looked at her. He looked at the house. He thought about his friends waiting at the corner. "I'll be back soon," he said. "I promise." And he left. He was not back soon. He came home at dusk, tired and happy, smelling of dust and sweat. His mother was already asleep. He stood in the doorway of her room for a moment and watched her breathing, slow and steady, and told himself she was fine. She was just tired. She was always tired. She would be fine. He went to bed that night without talking to her. 3 days later, his mother was taken to the hospital. Eli had never seen the inside of a hospital before. Not really. The smell of it reached him before the doors even opened. Clean and sharp and strangely sad. Auntie Rosa drove him there after school. She didn't say much. She held his hand in the elevator, which was something she had never done before. And that hand-holding told him more than any words could. His mother was in a room with a small window that looked out at a concrete wall. She was lying in a white bed with a tube in her arm. She looked smaller than she did at home, She looked lighter, somehow, as though the weight of all those early mornings and long days and quiet sacrifices had finally become visible, finally become something that showed. But when she saw him come through the door, she smiled. That same smile, her whole face. "Ely," she said, and something cracked open inside him. Something he hadn't known was sealed. He walked to her bed, and he sat in the plastic chair beside it, and he took her hand. It was warm and dry and small in his. He looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time in years. He looked at the lines at the corners of her eyes. He looked at the gray threading through her hair at the temples. He looked at her hands, the ones that had cut the crust off his bread every morning, the ones that had tucked his blanket up around his chin on cold nights when he was small, the ones that had sewn 1,000 garments so that he could go to school with shoes that fit. He sat there and he looked at her, and the weight of all the Saturdays he had run past her, all the dinners he had eaten without thanks, all the conversations he had half answered, all the times Auntie Rosa had told him and he had nodded and gone anyway. That weight fell on him all at once. "Mum," he said. His voice came out strange, thin and scraped. "I'm sorry I didn't stay that Saturday when you asked me to cook with you." She squeezed his hand. "Oh, Eli, I should have stayed. I should have learned the pepper soup." "There will be time," she said, but the way she said it made the words feel more like comfort than truth. "You are here now. That is what matters." He came back every day after that. He sat beside her bed and he talked to her, really talked, the way he should have been talking for years. He told her things he had never told her, about the thoughts he had at night, about the boy at school who made him feel small sometimes, about how he wanted to be a builder someday, the kind who builds things that last because he wanted to make something permanent in the world. He talked and she listened, the way she had always listened, with her whole self, with all of her attention. But he also listened. For the first time in his life, he listened to her. She told him about her own mother, his grandmother, a fierce and funny woman who had died before Eli was born. She told him about the first dress she ever sewed when she was 14, how the seams were all wrong, but she was so proud she wore it to church anyway. She told him that the hardest part of being a mother was not the tiredness or the money or the worry. The hardest part, she said, was knowing that your job was to love someone so completely that one day they wouldn't need you anymore. And that was also the most beautiful part. He sat with that for a long time, and then one evening, 3 weeks after she had been admitted, Eli came to the hospital and the room was different before he even reached it. He could feel it in the hallway. Auntie Rosa was outside the door, and her face when she turned to him, her face said everything before her mouth did. He stood very still. "She passed this morning," Auntie Rosa said quietly, peacefully, in her sleep. The world did something strange and silent around him. It didn't spin or crash. It just went very, very still. Like the moment before a storm, when even the birds stopped. He walked into the room. The bed was empty and neatly made. The small window still looked out at the concrete wall, and Eli stood there, 11 years old, in a hospital room that smelled of disinfectant and goodbye. And he understood, with a clarity that was almost physical, almost like something hitting him in the chest, what it meant to learn something too late. He thought about that Saturday, that one Saturday when she had sat on the edge of his bed, a small woman with tired eyes and a warm smile, and asked him to stay, to cook, to just be with her. And he had kissed her quickly and run out the door. He thought about every time Auntie Rosa had told him, every single time. He had heard the words, he had nodded. He had gone anyway. He thought about all the plates of food left covered with foil on the counter, still warm, waiting for him to come home. And standing there in that room, with nothing left to say and no one left to say it to, Eli began to cry. Not the loud, dramatic crying of childhood hurts, but the deep, slow, silent kind that comes from somewhere beneath the chest. The kind that sounds like it has been waiting a long time to come out. He cried for the Saturday. He cried for every later. He cried for every eye roll and every grunt, and every time he had looked through her like a window he had stopped noticing. He cried for the pepper soup he never learned to make. He cried for the fact that she had spent her whole life seeing him, and he had spent too much of his life failing to see her back. In the days that followed, Auntie Rosa moved quietly through the house, helping with arrangements, and Eli helped her. He did not know how to grieve. He did not know what came next, but he found himself doing small things that felt important. He folded his mother's fabric carefully. He watered the small potted plants on the windowsill, the ones she had tended every morning. He sat in her garden in the afternoon, in the golden hour, the way she used to sit with Auntie Rosa, and he looked at whatever it was they used to look at in the middle distance. He began to understand. He was 12 when he finally learned to make the pepper soup. Auntie Rosa taught him. They stood in his mother's kitchen on a rainy Saturday afternoon, and Auntie Rosa walked him through every step. The stockfish, the dried crayfish, the utazi leaves, the balance of pepper and warmth, and she talked about grace while they cooked. She told him stories about his mother as a young woman, brave and funny and fierce. Eli listened to every word. He did not look at his phone. He did not think about his friends waiting somewhere. He stood in that kitchen, and he was completely, fully present. When the soup was finished, he poured it into a bowl and sat at the table where he had eaten 1,000 meals without truly appreciating a single one. He took one sip, and he closed his eyes, and he closed his eyes. It tasted like mornings. It tasted like foil-covered plates. It tasted like a small woman with tired eyes who had loved him more than he had known how to receive. He sat at that table for a long time. Years later, when Eli was a grown man with children of his own, he told this story. He told it plainly, the way people tell true things, without drama, without performance, just with the quiet weight of a lesson that had cost him something real. He told it because his own son, a boy of 10 with messy hair and a gap between his teeth, had started doing what all boys do, running past, looking forward, forgetting to look at the people right beside him. And Eli would hold his son by the shoulders, gently but firmly, and look at him with serious, warm eyes, and say, "The people who love you most are not permanent. Nothing is permanent. And you won't understand that until you need to, unless someone tells you first." He said it every time. He said it without frustration and without shame. He said it because he was still paying a debt you pay by making sure someone else learns in time what you learned too late. And that is the story of Eli, the boy who learned too late. But here is what I want you to take with you tonight, before you close your eyes. The lesson of this story is not just Eli's lesson. It belongs to every one of us. There is someone in your life right now, maybe a parent, a grandparent, a friend, a sibling, who is giving you their time, their presence, their love, quietly and without asking for anything in return. They are folding your clothes. They are covering your plate with foil. They are sitting on the edge of your bed asking you to stay. And maybe, without meaning to, you are running out the door. Don't wait for the hospital room. Don't wait for the empty bed. Don't wait for the smell of goodbye in a hallway to teach you what you could learn today. Put down what you are rushing toward. Turn around. Look at them. Really look. Say the thing you have been meaning to say. Ask the question you keep postponing. Stay for the pepper soup, because the hardest truth this story holds is this: you cannot go back. There is no door that leads back to that Saturday. There is no way to return to the table and really taste the food this time. Once the moment passes, it passes. Once a person is gone, they are gone. But you are still here, and so are they. And tonight, right now, you still have time. Time is the most irreversible thing we own, and love is the most irreplaceable gift we receive. The tragedy of Eli's life was not that he was unkind. He was not a cruel boy. The tragedy was that he was absent, present in body but gone in spirit, rushing past the most important person in his world without ever truly stopping to see her. The golden lesson of this story is simple and ancient and endlessly true. Do not save your presence for when it is too late to give it. The people who love you silently, consistently, and without demand are the ones who deserve your attention most. Look at them, hear them, stay, because one ordinary Saturday shared with someone who loves you is worth more than every extraordinary adventure you will ever run toward. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone, if it made you want to pick up your phone and call your mother, or hug your grandmother, or just sit a little longer with the people you love, please let me know in the comments below. Your words mean everything to this channel, and they mean everything to me. If you are new here and this story found you tonight, please subscribe. I am here every week with a new story. Stories that feel, stories that teach, stories that stay with you long after the screen goes dark. Hit the bell so you never miss one. And if you know someone who needs to hear this tonight, someone who is running too fast, looking too far forward, forgetting to look beside them, please share this video. You might be giving them something they didn't know they needed. Like this video if it touched your heart. It helps more people find these stories, and every like is a small way of saying, this matters. Now let the story settle. Let it breathe inside you. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Feel the weight of your body against the mattress. Feel the warmth of the blanket. Feel the slow, steady rhythm of your own breathing. You are safe. You are loved. And tomorrow, you have a chance to do it differently than Eli did. Tomorrow, stay a little longer. Listen a little more. Let the people who love you know that you see them. Sleep well tonight, dear friend. I'll be here next time with another story. Good night.